Now, joining us, we have Congressman Scott Perry from Pennsylvania. He is the chair of the House Freedom Caucus. Scott, welcome back to the show.
It's great to be with you, Larry. You know, I was thinking about what you just said, and I don't know that John Kerry has ever signed the front side of a paycheck. I don't know why this guy gets to gallivant all across the world speaking for us. He doesn't speak for me. And apparently he has no clue that there are literally tens, if not hundreds of millions of Chinese, Indian, and Latin American citizens who live in abject poverty, who aren't going to care about anything about climate change until they join the new world where they live in the 21st century. And so, subjecting us to destroy our economy and our way of life and our opportunity is not going to fix that. That's where he needs to focus his attention instead of gallivanting all around in his private jet while telling you and me we can't buy a replacement gas stove.
Yes, well said, Scott Perry. It's an aside. It's not what I wanted to talk about, but now that you mention it, what improvement in, let's say, the Chinese economies or the Indian economies was based on market openings? Now, China is doing away from those market openings, and that's too bad. But the Deng Xiaoping reforms 40 years ago, were a tremendous step forward. And a lot of people were lifted out of poverty into something like the middle class. So every time John Kerry argues against capitalism or free markets or entrepreneurship or growth, it just tells me he doesn't know what he's talking about, okay? He just does know what he's talking about. Anyway, Scott, you do know what you're talking about. And I want to talk to you about budget stuff and some fiscal stuff. Yesterday, Joe Biden referred to Republicans as fiscally demented. I don't know if you heard that line. He said Republicans are fiscally demented because he's the hero. He's the guy who cut spending. And actually, we have, let's listen to the sound. I think we have a sound. Hang on a second, Scott. You can actually hear this live.
Okay.
You're going to talk about big spending Democrats again? Guess what? I reduced the deficit last year, $350 billion. And this year, federal deficit is down $1 trillion plus. Hear me, that's a fact. And there's going to be hundreds of billions reduced over the next decade. But so what? These guys are the fiscally demented, I think. They don't quite get it.
I don't know, Scott. If I were he, I wouldn't be talking about anything demented. But let's put that aside for a minute. I think you would agree Biden and his spending plans come to something like $6 trillion in the last 2 years. Unfortunately, some Senate Republicans have helped him along, but you all are going to stop that. And I want to just focus on how you intend to stop that. There's a lot of talk in the papers that the hope for House Republican budget reforms, regular order, and so forth, you got to sort through intra-party, defense versus non-defense, entitlements, Social Security and Medicare or not, social welfare spending or not. Can you talk a little bit about that? Let's start with the battle between defense and non-defense. How can that be worked out in conference?
Sure. I do want to start out with, since he mentioned it, though, by saying I thought it was in poor form to mention President Biden with dementia in the same sentence. But since he did, I'll just leave it there. Look, the way it was set up, the way I think the framework that we have is that we want to return to 2022 levels. And then that's the overall starting point. So you don't have to necessarily go after defense to deal with the overall level. You can go after non-defense discretionary, which has exploded every time the leftists are in charge of anything. And so we really need to take a look at that place first. But I would also say this, Larry, as a guy who's worn the uniform for over 30 years, there's certainly waste in the military. And with all due respect to our policymakers, including Joe Biden, maybe if we spent a little more on our own military and squaring that away, as opposed to the tens of millions that we're spending in Ukraine, we wouldn't have so much of an argument on our hands. So I think it comes down to priorities and sticking to your principles. The American people are sick and tired of this profligate spending, this out of control spending that actually makes their life more difficult. If you bought eggs recently, you know what I'm talking about. These increased prices that people while their wages might be going up, the rate of inflation, regardless of what the Biden administration says, is eclipsing any gains they've made. And oh, by the way, since I brought that up, it's not like President Biden was always the most trustworthy guy in the things he said. And I take exceptional issue with his claims that he actually reduced any spending or any deficit whatsoever. We know these Washington, D.C. gimmicks, and so do the American people. So do you, Larry.
Yeah, well, I know him well. Doesn't mean we should use him. I think we still have the sound from Kevin Hassett, Trump's chairman of Council of Economic Advisors. Here's a proposal, Scott Perry, from my buddy Kevin Hassett, who was on the show last week. Please take a listen to this.
Remember, Speaker Boehner had a deal where he said, I'll lift it for $1 if you give me $1 of spending cuts. My first offer, if I'm Kevin McCarthy, is $3 of spending cuts, and I'll give you $1 of debt limit.
Scott Perry, what do you think of that? $3 in spending cuts for every dollar of debt limit increase. I mean, that's a pretty good formula.
I would just add to the ante there and say, let's start the negotiation with $4 in spending cut, so we can actually start turning the rudder. A small rudder can turn a big ship, but we've got to start turning the rudder. So let's not sell ourselves short, and let's not start the negotiating at the low point. Let's start at a higher point, and then we can work to something reasonable. So I like the concept. There's some other things that we can do. I think that we keep ourselves out of a default, whether it's debt ceiling or whether it's appropriations, by attaching a CR to this thing, make it integral to part of it. Fund the government at 99%. Who can't live on 99% of what they make when they're having a disagreement or an impasse? Force the Senate to take that up and let them explain why that's not good enough. I think the House is poised to do these things, and we need to stand strong and be principled and put our foot down. The end to the Biden overall spending, out of control spending, that's over. Well, that's in sight right now.
I mean, the tax revenues are rolling in at a record pace. We're running about 20% of GDP. I believe that's the highest in the history of those numbers being kept. So there's money to fund the interest on the debt and a lot of essential programs. Now, other people, Democrats, are already criticizing you, not you personally, but the Republican House, saying you're all going to have to cut Social Security. You're going to have to cut Medicare. What's your response to that? I mean, the ink's barely dry. You haven't even done a budget resolution yet. So what do you say to that?
It's the standard tactic of the Democrats and the left, Larry. As you know, all they want to do is scare people from having what they've rightly earned in their savings and with Social Security. They want to scare them by saying that Republicans are always going to take that. That's never been a discussion while I've been in Congress, to disenfranchise people, to take their food off their plate and off their table. It's just the Democrats' talking point when they know that they're in trouble. They can't defend how they've been spending. They know it, so they just go to their backup, which is always tried and true, which is demagoguing their opponents without any context, without any granularity. They absolutely have no facts whatsoever to stand on. You and I both know it. The American people sense it. They're just spouting off like they usually do.
Speaker McCarthy has said, and I think you've said it on this show, others have said it, it's time for new and much lower spending caps as part of the deal. And that would include sequestration, which is the automatic spending cuts if the caps are not met. Now, there have been caps in place for 10 or 12 years, but they get waived every year. So will the budget reforms include new, tougher caps and automatic spending cuts as a penalty if the caps aren't met?
I think we're going to have to see something, Larry, to cajole the Senate into actually showing up for work, waking up from their nap, and getting to work. They have in the past. They don't even do a budget. They just blue slip their appropriations bills. They don't even vote on them, Larry, and then they jam these things down our throat. That's no longer going to happen because of the new House rules, and the Senate needs to be put on notice. So if they want to be, irresponsible with the taxpayers' money, they're going to pay a price for it, and it's going to be the ratcheting down in some way or another. In my mind, it has to be the ratcheting down to bring them to the table and to shock them into the reality that we can't keep on spending money that literally does not exist.
All right, well said. Scott Perry, head of the Freedom Caucus. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Talk soon.